This is Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool, nerdy happenings at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond. From books and concerts to search engines and story times, the library nerds are in and ready to show you that being a nerd can be cool. Get ready, get set, get nerdy. Welcome back to Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool things going on at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond, straight from the people who know it best, library nerds. My name is Marty Ackett, and I'm the adult programming coordinator for Peter White Public Library. And joining me today in Nerd Central is poetry nerd superstar Gala Mahlerbe. Welcome to the podcast, Gala.
Thank you. Good morning.
You know, I am super happy to be able to sit down and talk with you. Not that we don't talk other times, but now Gala and I have been great friends for many, many years. She's a local poet, writer, and member of PWPL's Marquette Poets Circle. She is a regular here at the library, and she has even seen Marquette from the best view in the entire city, the roof of Peter White. You could say that she has written her name in the clouds. Yes, that is a clue as to what Gala is here to talk about today. But before we get into what is on your mind, Gala, we have to play a game of Word on the Nerd. I'm going to ask you 3 library nerd questions, and you have to answer them for listeners. So, Gala, are you ready to play
Word on the Nerd?
All right, Gala, this is going to be a game of Would You Rather. I'm going to ask you 3 Would You Rather questions, and you have to truthfully answer them for the listeners. And all of today's questions have to do with poetry and writing. So here's your first question. Would you rather go bird watching with poet Mary Oliver, or would you rather have dinner with poet Ross Gay sampling all of his favorite foods?
Well, it's a difficult choice, but I think I would have to pick spending time with Ross Gay only because bird watching is such a, it's kind of a solitary activity, and I feel like I would just be in Mary Oliver's way. But if I were with Ross Gay, I feel like we would have a lot to discuss, and I think I might actually be able to convince him that I'm not crazy and that we could become fellow writers and thinkers.
All right. So Ross Gay all the way. I do agree with you. Bird watching is kind of a solitary thing. So, but yes, for those who are listening, Gala did have an encounter with Ross Gay a little while ago, and a couple encounters, and they were interesting. So, but we won't get into that. Okay. So now the questions may get a little harder from here on out. So here's your second question. Would you rather write just one poem for the rest of your life that makes you famous, or would you rather write poetry collections for the rest of your life with only a few people ever reading them?
That is not a hard question,
Okay.
Marty.
Which one is it?
I would never choose to be famous over choosing to have intimate time with poetry and just a few people. That is me all the way.
Okay.
No fame for me.
No fame for you, but you do publish poetry collections, so that's, you continue writing. I would say, I don't want to be a one-hit wonder anyway, so I would say I would go with just, I can't imagine not having poetry.
Right.
And not being able to write poetry. So, okay. So here's your last question. Maybe the hardest one, I don't know. Would you rather be able to identify every bird you see by their songs and bird calls? Or would you rather be able to recite every poem by your favorite poet from memory?
These are still very easy questions,
Oh,
Marty.
wow. Okay.
I would absolutely choose to know the birds
Really?
by seeing them and hearing them. There's a whole lot of dopamine that goes along with recognizing the wild world. And I don't need to recite poems.
You've got books for that. You
Right.
can just open up the book
Right.
and read it. Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. I might go with the poems on that one.
Okay,
Well,
once you start recognizing those birds and your little brain starts
I
lighting up.
I have not fallen into that yet. I'm saying yet.
Okay.
So, because I know I've asked you, like I've heard a bird calling and asked you, tried to imitate it too, and you were able to identify it, which I find astounding. So, all right, well, there you have it. We have come to the end of this special poetic edition of Word on the Nerd with Gala Mahlerbe, local poet and member of the Marquette Poets Circle. And now, Gala, the time has come to find out what is on your poetry nerd mind today. It's a little segment on the podcast we like to call The Word. All right, Gala, what has you going from bad to verse today?
Well, I have 2 new cats that we picked up from UPAWS that are pretty unsocialized, and they have hidden in the darkest corners of our house and made us do all kinds of acrobatics and yoga moves to even see them. But last night I had a giant breakthrough, and I reached in and let the little shy one smell my finger, and then when I started to pet this little gray, short-haired, topaz-eyed kitten or cat, it started to purr.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, the world was exploding because that sound is a sound I wasn't sure I would ever hear. So that's my biggest joy in the last 12 hours.
All right. And we got together with a bunch of teens last night too, which was fantastic. You want to talk about how this is a new programming series that we're doing from January to February for teens. It is called Write On, and that's WRITE, Write On. And do you want to talk about how this came into being?
Yes. So Marty and I and Marquette and the universe lost a very special human being. Her name was Helen Haskell-Ramin. She was a writer, but more than that, she was an inciter of joy and creativity in countless people. And after she passed away, through a series of strange events, we did find a manuscript that she had been working diligently on, and we were able together to get that published into a book of poems. And there are over 30 poems that she had written in that book. And with the family's blessing, with her husband's blessing, we have sold that book around Marquette, and the proceeds have been squirreled away for some sort of a creative program that Helen would support. So yesterday we kicked this program off, and like Marty said, it's called Write On. We have a handful of teenagers present. We're going to spend 6 weeks with them. Each week there'll be a different local poet leading these kids through writing exercises and prompts so that they can create their own writing art. And by the end of the 6 weeks, if they have a collection that they're proud of and that they would like to give a home to, we will help them self-publish a small chapbook or a large chapbook, whatever they come up with. We're not going to put too many rules on this, and then they will have a work of art that was inspired by several different voices of already accomplished poets in the area. So anyway, I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of learning, and I'm not sure who's more excited. I think the poets that are going to get to lead these workshops are way more excited than the kids.
Well, they didn't know last night because I led the first workshop. And they didn't know what they were in for. So, it was just it's a whole new animal here at the library, and, a new program, hopefully one that we can continue to support. And those kids, they were really, really talented. We have five kids registered right now. Only 4 could make it yesterday. But we sat there for, this might sound like torture to some people, but we sat there for an hour and a half talking about poetry and talking about the mechanics of poetry, but also writing. And it was so much fun. At least I had fun. I think Gala had fun, and I think the kids had fun too. They were super into it, super excited. And there's still room in the workshop. You don't have to attend every session in order to be a part of this. So if there's any parents out there or teens that are listening that are interested in writing poetry, you can still go to the page, the pwpl.info, go to the events page. You can still register and be a part of this. There's no cost at all for this. It's all the books themselves. If the teens decide to publish a book, it's all going to be funded through the generosity of Helen's family. And I think it's just going to be great. We have B.G. Bradley, 2022 Writer of the Year for the Marquette Art Awards, who's going to be coming in. Hopefully Beverly Mathern, the current UP Poet Laureate, is going to be coming in. So Ronnie Ferguson, who's a great collaborator and has done lots of things here at the library as well, are going to be here. So I think it's just a great program. And I said this last night at the workshop. We had 6 people there. I said, but there's a 7th person there sitting on the chair right next to us, and that would have been Helen. I absolutely could envision her in that room talking with those kids and getting so excited for them. So, I mean, just a super program and a really great tribute to continuing Helen's work, and that's what it's all about. Gayla and I get together almost every week to write, and Helen's name is invoked almost every time that we get together. So, but super fun program. Teens and parents, if you're listening to this, and your kid has any interest at all in writing, I really encourage you to register for this event and come and see what it's all about. And you know what? If you come one week and you decide this is not for me, that's fine, But why don't you come and check it out? Okay. Well, there you have it, fellow library nerds. That's Gayla's word on the Teen Poetry Workshop series at PWPL called Write On. However, you cannot leave Nerd Poet House just yet, Gayla. First, we have to get a book recommendation from you. Something that you think listeners should immediately run to the library and pick up off the shelf. All right, Gayla, what have you been reading that's good?
Well, because I have kind of a one-track mind, I'm just going to go with the Ross Joy.
Ross Gay.
Sorry. See, I'm so full of joy.
Yeah, we're talking about Helen of Joy and everything, but it's Ross Gay.
Okay, I know it's Ross Gay. So, that's why he'll never be my friend. I'm too scattered. Anyway, Ross Gay's book, which is a book of essays named Inciting Joy, would be my top recommendation for a book right now.
Okay.
And if you're interested in poetry, he also has poetry books. But what I found is by listening to his essays, I got to know him and where he was coming from, so that when I read those poems, they made so much more deeper sense to me when I read them. And what Ross Gay does is he makes space for sorrow, and he actually gives sorrow a place at the table, which, in his philosophy, unites all of us, because there really isn't one single human being that hasn't experienced or isn't experiencing sorrow. And if we can use that thread to unite ourselves, we are well on our way to joy. And I think that's how I felt all along. And so the fact that Ross was able to explain it so well, I don't have to. and listeners, she had a little fangirl experience with Ross Gay down in Ann Arbor a few weeks ago.
where he was there giving a reading, right? Was it?
Yeah, I just happened to run into him on the street.
Just happened to run in. She wasn't looking for him at all.
I wasn't looking for his purple hoodie or anything, but anyway, no, I did that whole like Ross gay, and then wild waving of the arms as if he should believe that he knew me, but of course he didn't. But he was very gracious, and he shook my hand. And the second time I ran into him that day, he said, "Good seeing you again, Gala."
Which is a really kind and generous.
He's so kind.
Yeah, I mean, but you got to admit that probably most poets don't get that kind of like attention. Like you're walking down the street and all of a sudden it's like, Ross Gay, waving your arms wildly or almost falling off a balcony to talk to him, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I tend to make my mark.
Well, I don't. He does not think that you're crazy. I can't imagine, because having read some of his poems and listened to some things that he's done, I think that he is probably, at least in the impression I get, is one of the kindest people that I've ever
Absolutely
encountered.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, there you go. That is Gala's recommendation of something that you should pick up off the shelf. And we have come to the end of this poetry episode of Library Nerds with Words. I want to thank Gala Mahlerbe, poetry nerd extraordinaire, for stopping by Nerd Junction today. Come back next week when I will be sitting down with Andrea Marsh, communications coordinator at PWPL, who's going to be talking about PWPL's brand new website and its features. Until that time, everyone, stay nerdy. Thank you for listening to Library Nerds with Words, Peter White Public Library's weekly podcast, giving you the word on what's cool at the library. The theme for the podcast is Happy Clappy by John Bartman, used courtesy of Pixabay. This episode was written and produced by Martin Acketts and sponsored by Peter White Public Library. Until next week, pick up a good book, listen to some good music, watch a good movie, attend a great event, and remember, library nerds are the coolest people around.